sent a message, and then before we know it, we're at a waterfall, like covered in mud, shooting videos in the dirt, and just actually getting super textural. That was like
we were,
meeting.
yep.
Yeah.
I think it was just kind of a working title, and then we just never changed it, and now we're just running with it. But I feel like for me, it lights me up in some kind of ways, and it's like a little bit goofy. It's definitely goofy, but I feel like if you're a texture boy, like that's exactly the tone of what it is. Like if you know, kind of shit.
Yeah.
You too may be a texture.
You too may be a texture boy. I think Matt's a texture boy.
For sure.
Let's go. How y'all doing today?
Alive.
Love it.
How are you, Matt?
I'm doing great. Stoked for this. I feel like it's been a long time coming. Maybe not too long. Maybe a couple months. We've been talking about it ever since you guys started kind of teasing out the Texture Bois album, which I'm currently listening to. Sounds freaking amazing. The track I'm on right now is Back Down. It's winding down, so I'll probably turn it off after this track so we can just like focus on conversation. But yeah, I just wanted to really prepare for the conversation with you guys and dive into the album. And it sounds freaking amazing. I was just commenting on the vocals. Beautiful, lush, warm vibes going on, and I feel like I don't know, like I'm curious like how it all happens. I guess we'll get to that, but first we'll kind of discuss the initiation of the collaboration, how you guys met each other and that type of thing. I mean, how did you guys meet each other?
I think Instagram, actually.
Yeah, I think technically like mutual friends and kind of connected on Instagram, and then you came out to Maui like before you moved out here and just kind of hung out. And we live on an island, so it's a small community too.
Yeah. My partner Ray showed me Nikaya's video and dance and music stuff on Instagram and was like, we need to collaborate with this human. And I agreed, sent a message, and then before we know it, we're at a waterfall, like covered in mud, shooting videos in the dirt, and just actually getting super textural. That was like the
we
first
were,
meeting.
yep. Yeah, I remember there was this little like jelly mushroom on a log.
Oh yeah.
And I particularly was like, yo, like get a macro shot of this, because LŁKA was like shooting me and Ray. But I'm like, I felt like fully comfortable. Like this guy just like, he gets this. Like there's gonna be like no questions asked about
And
like
then,
why I need a macro shot of this jiggly mushroom right now. Like I just can tell he knows what's up.
Yeah. And somebody jiggled it.
I jiggled the junk.
Like I jiggled that mushroom. Good. So that was the meeting. And then I ended up moving here and we just became homies. And I guess the origin story of Texture Bois was Nikaya and Elf were staying at Lachlan's pad. Their friend has a sweet spot down by the beach, and they wanted to have a jam. And their friend, now my friend Zerk, Michael Bonner, who's featured on a lot of these tracks, just an amazing stand-up bass player. And we freestyled and recorded that night. Yeah, so some of the album was, I think, from that original jam, right?
Yeah, Say It was from our very first jam.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
So just all in the flow.
And me being a producer, I'm just like, I'm recording this all. Our friend Zerk was also like moving off island. So it's kind of like, okay, this is the sliver of time we have to work with this musician. And I feel like that was like allowed us to really get together and actually get in the studio, because you know how it is with your homies. Like, yeah, we should make music sometime. And then, doesn't always happen, but just being like, okay, this person is leaving island. We want to record with them. Like, let's do it.
Absolutely. When you record, do you kind of just hit record on like a new Ableton file and just like let it go for a long time and see what happens? Or do you kind of like set a tempo and get a drum going and then start that process?
I feel like every song is a little bit different, but like for that first track, say it for example, we did an exercise called Splice Oracle where I don't know, one of us was like, just pick a word and we'll just throw that into Splice and see what's the coolest sample we can find, and just and it was like a little guitar pluck loop. It's like, it's definitely throughout the whole song, but it's like pretty in the mix. I feel like when I hear that song, I'm not like, oh, there's a guitar in this song. But I remember we found that sample, and then from there I just laid down some super raw drums, pretty much like an extended loop, and then I was just like, okay, now let's just record. Everyone just do a few takes and let's noodle around and see what happens. And both LÜKA and Zerk are just super high level musicians and just dropped in immediately. So I feel like ended up using like everything we recorded, and like I said, it was just like a few takes. So I don't know, I feel like just some magic occurred that night and it just really like effortlessly fell into place. And I feel like the sound that happened is something completely different than what I would just create if it were myself alone in the studio. So that feels like the part where the magic came together. It was just like this whole new sound just wanted to be birthed.
Wow. Love that. Yeah, I almost feel like it's a new genre, I guess we could slap a couple of names of genres onto what it is. But to me, it does feel like kind of like an emergence of a new sound. When I think of like Shelajit, which is your project, Nikaya, really a lot of like deep bass music comes to mind, kind of like a primal bass sound, foresty, jungly. And then with LÜKA, it feels very like ethereal and kind of, I guess folktronic does come to mind. But you have a few contemporaries that you work with, LÜKA. I think one of the more popular names is like Mose, who I'm a big fan of. And he actually turned me on to ecstatic dance by bumping into his ecstatic dance kind of, what do you call it, like expose on YouTube at that place, Atilan Lake, I think it's called. That was my first exposure to ecstatic dance probably 5 years ago. And I was like, whatever's going on in this video, I like it, So, but yeah, it's a cool like weaving together of bass music and more like guitar vocal music that I really haven't heard before. Like I guess let's get into a little bit of the background from each of you. I guess we could start with you, Nikaya, like with Shelajit. I think this might be one of your first interviews. So it'd be cool to just like share that story. It doesn't have to be super long, so we can make the most of our time here, but of, your project, Shelajit, and then we'll get into LÜKA's and then the merging of the two. So yeah, tell us what the kind of intention is and how Shelajit came to be.
Well, the project really came to be, I have a background in dance, so I feel like I've always just been really, embodied and connected to music. And it's always just like, I don't know, I've always just had such a deep love and relationship with music. And I feel like, I don't know, being around the festival scene and the bass scene and all that, I feel like I just like wasn't quite hearing some sound that my body just like wanted to dance to. And, I feel like a part of me growing up as a dancer, like I always wanted to do music. Like there was just like some calling deeper in me that I know I've just felt my whole life. So yeah, I just chose to listen to that and just went in the rabbit hole of producing, and here we are. Long story short, I guess. But yeah, I guess a big intention of that is to create these like deeper, more internal journeys to really weave this experience for dancers like myself and people who really like want to turn in rather than turn up and turn out. You know, I feel like a lot of like bass music or whatnot is like it's about partying and celebration and maybe gathering and having this like external hype experience. And I feel like my true tone is, you know, more down tempo, more inward. More about having these like rich inner experiences. And I know like personally some of my most like profound experiences I've had have been just like dancing alone in my room. And I know like that's a thing that people be doing and are also having, you know, profound experiences. So, you know, want to create a soundtrack for that. And I'm also like a dance performer, so like stuff we can put on stage too. So that's a little bit about that. There's definitely more layers, but I think that's a broad stroke about, you know, what that project is. Definitely a layer of like bringing in my Chinese heritage as well as something that's been, you know, coming alive for me. So I feel like it's really important for us to create from our roots and like, you know, work with what we really got there, because I feel like it's such a common thing, especially like in modern kind of spiritual culture, to reach for stuff that's like outside of ourselves or reach for things that are trendy or what other people are doing and whatnot. So that's, you know, rich medicine for me currently, just working with my heritage and bringing that forward in a modern way.
Yeah, and you play that one instrument. It looks very traditional. Can you remind me what the name of it is?
It's called the guzheng. And yeah, it's a traditional Chinese zither. It's a table harp. And I've actually been learning more about it. You know, I definitely consider myself technically a beginner. I've just been playing for a few years here, but have been learning more about the mythology of it and how it represents the dragon, and like the strings are like the veins of the dragon, and the people that used to traditionally play the guzheng were mostly women, and they're said to be like, you know, oracles and like the connector of like spirit and physical plane, which I really like feel that when I'm playing it. It's definitely a rich, deep spiritual experience. So it's cool to just have naturally picked up that instrument and have just like felt that, you know, natural pull to it. And then after learning more about the story of it and just feeling like how aligned that is cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. On some of your videos that you post, I can kind of see you pulsing with one hand, and it finally resonated in my mind how the instrument worked, because I had heard the instrument before. I'd even seen it very few times, maybe twice in my whole life, performed out, but I could never like understand how they were making that one kind of bendy, you know, like whoa, 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 you know, like the vibrato, I guess. And then, you know, now that I've been watching some of your videos, I could see how that's done, and it's so cool. Like that you play, I guess it's almost like guitarish with one hand, but on the other hand, you're like bending the string. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It sounds great. It sounds really cool. Is that going to make more of an appearance in future music?
Definitely, yeah. I'm working on an album right now, and the guzheng is in almost every track. I think Megway, that single I released with TIMEWHEEL, I think that was my first release track with the guzheng in the composition. And then that track's also going to be re-released on the album, but that's very much so like the vibe of the full LP. And, you know, in the process of weaving that into my live sets as well. So it's, you know, it's slowly making its way into what I do.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. And I love that track and the visual for it. Great job with that. But yeah, LØKA, yeah, how did you come to music? You know, what's your story with finding music and what the intention of your project is?
Yeah, I just was born into a really musical family, so it was just always a part of my life. My family was the worship band in the church that I was forced to be a part of and that I grew up in.
Yeah.
So I was just always a little kid on the djembe or drum kit or whatever for many years. And then at about 13 started writing my own songs on guitar that I'd never let anyone hear. And just was always making music. Ended up later having a family band with my siblings to kind of heal a lot of that childhood church realm and familial trauma stuff that a lot of us go through.
Yeah.
And that was a part of this big indie folk Seattle music scene explosion that a lot of big groups came out of that are now internationally doing the thing still. And that project was just one album and one tour, and played some really big venues. It was super beautiful, really healing. And then we segued into different projects, and I started working on my solo album. And so kind of just been coming out of that indie folk Seattle realm and transitioning into other places musically. I'm definitely a sound design nerd, so ganging up with Nakai has been really good because we just explore sounds and different textures that we can make sonically, and that's really good for my spirit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what brought you to Hawaii? Because I feel a lot of that kind of like I don't know what to call it, if there's a specific word for the Hawaiian jungle, but I'm catching that in your latest music.
So I was, many years ago, I wanted to play my first solo set, just me and a guitar, in a venue that I had helped kind of rebuild and run for many years in Seattle. And I had seen these guys Wolfchild around, and I really liked their music, so I asked them if they wanted to be part of the show. And I was the opener for them, and then I booked and produced the show. And I think there was maybe 3 or 4 people in the audience. It was, for some reason, just not huge turnout, but the reward of that was that I met Eli, who is one of the brothers in that band, and he just exudes aloha everywhere that he goes. And I was pretty down on the show in general because I thought I did terrible. It was my first time basically doing that alone and for an empty venue at the same time. So there's that element. And he was just like, bro, that was so good. I loved it. Like, please come to Maui. We have a farm and a temple, and like, come play the temple, whatever. Let's hang out. And I was super depressed and freezing wet Seattle realm at that time, and I was like, I want some of that. And so I ended up coming out to Maui, which I ended up doing for many years on and off for months at a time, just working the land, pretty much living in the jungle and growing food and making music out here, and then being nomadic for many years, kind of always feeling like I wanted to end up here.
Yeah. Beautiful place to end up. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've never been, it's still kind of on my bucket list to come check it out there. But I also feel like this spiritual vibe coming through both of your music independently, but also the Texture Bois. I guess, would each of you speak to the spiritual path? I guess we could pass it back to Nakaya for a moment and just like explore a little about like, your spiritual beliefs or how you came to those, what they are, if they are, and how that kind of like plays a role in the music creation.
I feel like I'm naturally just like a deeply spiritual being, and it feels like something that's just woven into me. And to be honest, like I don't really do spiritual practices or like try and be spiritual in my music, but it feels like something I can't not do in my work either. So I don't know if this is like a juicy, fun answer or anything, but I'm not really trying to be spiritual, but it just naturally comes through in the work. And
is there maybe a tradition that you feel attracted towards? You know, like for myself, I've always been super interested in Eastern mysticism, which led me to like research yoga for many, many years, all forms of yoga and those kind of like Eastern traditions. And, you know, I've looked into Western traditions as well, but I don't know. There's something just strikes me about like Taoism, Buddhism, not necessarily Hinduism, but a lot of the practices of the area that Hinduism is a main focus, you know, specifically yoga, and a little bit of astrology, kind of like the Vedic astrology has always kind of played a role in my belief process. Does anything stick out to you as like something you resonate with, or are you kind of like making your own belief system? Because I know that's a thing too.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. Yeah, like Eastern mysticism and more specifically things from my Chinese heritage, like, you know, Taoism and, you know, like Shaolin Kung Fu feels like really interesting. And I feel like elements of that have found their way into my practices. So I guess it's true. I definitely do practices. You know, I work with swords and then my Gushan as well. Those are definitely spiritual practices, but I guess for me, I'm just like, oh, I'm practicing music or I'm practicing this, you know, movement form. So I don't like try and make it a spiritual thing, but it innately just is. But with that, I feel like, yeah, I learn deeper about just the wisdom of some of these elements from my heritage and the mysticism and all that comes with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny because I don't think most people would think of, you know, using the sword and these different kind of things that I've seen you kind of spin with and dance with as the spiritual practice. But yeah, the way that you present it, it certainly feels that way. And yeah, that's such a cool thing because there's such a unique kind of vibe coming through, you know, like that's one reason I really resonated with, you know, your visual aesthetic coming through TIMEWHEEL was it really just felt like badass spiritual warrior, you know, coming out of the forest. And I don't know, I freaking love it. I love whatever you're doing. So keep it up. But it's really cool. And, you know, most people think of, you know, a spiritual practice as meditation or yoga or I don't even know what else. I guess diet in some cases, you know, like I fast or I do this vegan thing or whatever. But, you know, using the sword is like super freaking dope, you know?
Thanks. Yeah, I love it. And, you know, to echo that, I feel like, you know, it is a part of just who I am and what my soul is. It's just like this void warrior. And I feel like I have, you know, warrior blood in me and samurai blood and all these things. So it feels like it's deeply in me and it comes through in this spiritual way through these practices rather than reaching for this teaching, that teaching, but naturally like I learn and like remember more or less.
Yeah. Love it. How about you, LŁKA? How do you find like the quote unquote spiritual path? You know, like what are your kind of beliefs or what brought you to that? Because it sounded like you came out of maybe like a Christian place, which I did as well. I grew up Christian and I ended up kind of having a number of experiences, specifically with psychedelics, that opened my eyes to the interconnectedness between all world religions and all mystical traditions. And I was seeing like, oh, they're all kind of saying the same thing through a different lens. And it just really opened my mind to the appreciation for that aspect of humanity, which I had previously kind of really doubted, you know. But I don't know. I feel like there's definitely something spiritual going on with what you're bringing. So what's your story with it?
Yeah, it sounds like we have a very similar path there. Yeah, I definitely left the church before finding these different medicines, but they really helped me, see the bigger picture that you're speaking to. Definitely feel I've always had a pretty strong connection with the Buddhism realm and the Taoism realm, but I would say most of my spirituality is just nature and just being with the plants and just chilling in nature, really. And a lot of Amazonian spiritualism as well interwoven in there. So a lot of these songs came out of me heading to the studio or to Nikaya's bedroom where the studio was set up, and just coming out of these ceremonial spaces where I'm half asleep and still on one, and just basically freestyle mumbling into the mic. And a lot of the takes actually were just meant to be scratch vocals, experimenting on what pathways could be explored with the voice, and then trying to, sorry, I'm segueing out of this.
No, go ahead.
Okay. It's all wrapped in together, but just exploring pathways with the voice, and those ended up being the actual takes in there. So definitely the vocals are very informed by spiritual realms.
Yeah.
Trying to bring it back around.
Well, I agree. Well, yeah, like some type of flow of creativity unlocks because we're able to make connections we previously weren't. You know, I'm a vocalist as well. It's kind of more of a back pocket thing that I have these days rather than what I focus on. But I did grow up singing, being a big fan of bands, many bands, but particularly existential kind of bands and lyrics, things that were speaking to things I didn't understand yet, but I just yearned to. I was like, what are they talking about? I need to figure it out. And it led me down this path of study that did eventually lead me into a very actually hesitant headspace towards immersing myself in the psychedelic world. But through enough courage, I decided to. And it's almost like my mind could see so much more to speak about, to tone about, to emote. And I'm feeling that same vibe with you. And I think that it just comes through. I don't know, like something like maybe, if we want to say it in one way, our throat chakra unlocks and we just allow like that to flow through our system, the nervous system, into, music form. And it's such a hard thing to do for a lot of people, and for myself many times. Absolutely. It's almost like, what do I say? Because we're wrapped up in our mind about maybe how we'll be perceived. But if you just allow it to flow out, sometimes you get a better thing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of my process is just shutting off the brain and singing through the heart and opening the throat. And just letting whatever wants to come through. And a lot of times that's some plants singing through me.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Have you had that experience of like, I don't know, it's almost like becoming a human photosynthesis receiver? I've been out there in the woods a few times, working with some sacred mushrooms, and I was like, oh, I'm unlocking photosynthesis. It's weird. It's like becoming a plant, and like, it's almost like we're walking plants. I've always felt this resonance, like we're part of the same thing. It's like we're not separate from trees and plants and nature. We're just like a different form of it. Some would think maybe a more evolved form. Sometimes I wonder, is that really the case? Or maybe are the trees really more evolved than us, because we might be destroying the fucking planet, whereas they're holding it together. But yeah, I think that's one thing that for myself, I really was trying to unlock this kind of creative vision towards, was like transmuting plant technology, plant language into music. Is that something you resonate with?
Yeah, I think that's my main focus in life.
Luke is a plant daddy.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I did want to ask this too, because I find the name so interesting, the Texture Boys. Would you guys mind sharing, how did you come up with this name, and what does it represent to you?
I have no idea.
Well, okay, the first time I heard the Texture Boys, which, shout out Brandy Bass Nymph, she's the one who technically murmured those words first.
Oh, yeah.
But it was like someday when her and I and a few of our friends were just enjoying some mushrooms, and I remember we were watching this playlist of YouTube videos I put together of all these like super textural like visualizers and these interesting 3D designers just, making interesting textures. And it was in a playlist that was meant to be projected for a show we were going to do or something. But yeah, I remember just like being a little bit trippy, just enjoying these textures and just going deep in them. And we're just like one moment just like crying and just feeling the textures so deep. And then Brandy was just like, oh yeah, he's a texture boy. Like, she said that about this 3D designer. And I remember, like, I don't know, it just hit this specific tone, and I just pocketed that. I was like, that's a thing. And then I feel like I just slapped it on as kind of a working title, because we're like, it was obvious, like, we were making a new project because this was such a new sound. So I think it was just kind of a working title, and then we just never changed it, and now we're just running with it. But I feel like for me, it lights me up in some kind of ways, and it's like a little bit goofy. It's definitely goofy, but I feel like if you're a texture boy, like, that's exactly the tone of what it is. Like, if you know kind of shit.
Yeah.
You too may be a texture.
You too may be a texture boy. I think Matt's a texture boy.
For sure.
Let's go. I love it. I've always, I guess what I think of when you say all of that is like aesthetics. It's like, if comes with a certain form of aesthetic. It's like, to some people, they might see, I mean, I know this for sure, like the visionary art that TIMEWHEEL shares, whether it's through some of our mix visuals, or album arts, or just even artist features, and they just be like, what the hell is that? But to the people who've been there, they're like, oh yeah, I get it. And it kind of is what creates the ethos of what we put out in a way. That's why I think we're kind of a very like niche label, and curation is that it's funny because it's almost seeming a little more and more mainstream. I'm really hesitant to say the word mainstream, because for a long time, TIMEWHEEL was very fringe, and it was like, I felt like I was operating on like outside of the matrix. But I feel like slowly the matrix and this visionary quality are coming together. Maybe that's a good thing, that more people are being able to appreciate it, so long as we do it, respectfully and responsibly and that type of thing.
Yeah, is the mainstream tapping further into the fringe because they've outsourced, or they've tapped all their resources, and now they gotta peek outside the matrix and the veil to see what's there and then take from it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or are we just everything influencing everything?
Yeah.
And a texture runs through it,
Yeah. I guess there is levels too, and sometimes I wonder, is it just me perceiving these levels? But even through like certain works of art, like film, like I grew up watching certain films, not seeing anything existential, anything spiritual about these films, and then watch it later as I'm a little bit further along the path and being like, whoa, this is like a masterpiece of igniting that soul, like the soul inspiration within us. So maybe the mainstream is all spiritual, quote unquote, and people just don't know yet. But it's cool that I feel it's cool that it's gaining popularity. It's providing a platform. There's more and more festivals and more music shows, art shows, events, conferences even that are popping up to celebrate kind of what used to be so fringe and is now becoming more mainstream. But I mean, I can only hope, so long as the education comes along with these things, that it can help provide a happier, healthier community for each of us. You know, I know certainly there are inherent dangers, as with anything, with some of these things, specifically psychedelics. If you mishandle them, you know, it can be a bad time. But that's why there's a lot of importance for the respect for these things and the power that they have. But I don't want to get too far into all that. You know, I've got so many podcasts on all of that already. So to kind of bring it back to you guys, you have a new album coming out. Is the whole title of it is An Offering? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little about that, when it's coming out, and what you guys did there?
Comes out August 8th, right around the corner here.
Awesome.
We have one more single that we're going to drop on the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
It's that song Back Down that you were listening to when we started.
Perfect.
And we just shot some music film footage with our homie Nick Waraksa.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks really, really good. Excited about that. Yeah.
It really does. Yeah, you guys almost do just equally as well with the visuals as you do with the music. You know, I guess I'm curious, how does that happen? Is that through the collaboration with Nick, or do you guys like just have a certain thing in mind before you go into it, or do you just experiment through the film process, or what's the kind of creative method for going into the visuals?
I think Nikaya and I have some similar aesthetics, and we vibe on a lot of the same things. Sometimes it's just the texture of a fabric or something. We'll send each other like a photo, like, check out this, how this looks and feels, you know? And so we're kind of on the same vibe for a lot of things in general. And yeah, we're both just also video, film boys, visual boys. So always sharing ideas for those. When I listen to music, I tend to have, especially music that I create or co-create, I tend to have very strong visuals, and I see very strong images, textures, lighting, all that sort of thing. And so for a lot of these songs, I just had a note pulled up on my phone, and I just, on and off for months, was just jotting down different things that I would see as I listened to the album, and then kind of merged that with Nikaya's ideas for visuals. And yeah, and then Nick is just he's got that cinema eye, and he brings a lot to our collective in that way. And then Nikaya's been doing a lot of the editing and just crushing it.
It's awesome.
Do you want to add anything to that?
I think you hit it, but yeah, I think in general, like Luke and I have a very shared vision and aesthetic and style, so that part just like really falls into place easily. And I feel like a lot of times we'll have a general vision of what we're wanting to do with the video, but then I think a big part of our creative process visually is parallel to audio in some ways, where it's just like we get on set and just kind of play around and see what happens. And I feel like a big part of this project too, it being a newer side project for both of us, is just like being resourceful and seeing how we can work with trash and random shit we have laying around and like, you know, the limited budget we have and all the things, and like, how do we just make this epic next level? How do we bring this into our world? Like even this video we just shot, we're just like around this industrial building where my studio is, just, you know, super old, 100-year-old, like kind of trash building, but we're just like getting so into the textures and the natural wear of the building and just like turning that into a whole world. And even like our first shot, we were shooting LÖKA first. We're just walking around the back of the building and he sees like, what is that stuff? Piping? It was not piping, like hose kind of.
It's irrigation for a garden, which I actually install a lot of at my day job.
Yeah, but anyways, for example, he just found a pile of that laying on the floor and he's like, cool, we're like, I don't even know if it was a discussion, but he just picked it up and started just vibing hard with it. And, you know, just got like these top tier shots. Like it just looks so high end and so interesting, textural. But I feel like it's shit like that and that willingness to experiment and just work with what we got and not afraid to, you know, look weird or call ourselves the Texture Boys and just like do shit and see what happens is a lot of like, I feel like the spirit of this project. And I feel like we're able to really meet each other there, audio wise and visually and whatnot.
Experimentation at the core of this project, I would say. It's the main thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like there's so much to be said about doing what you can with what you have. You know, I think there is this kind of dilemma so many artists have, and I've had in the past, about kind of comparing ourselves to maybe certain levels of production, certain props, or, you know, places that are available to artists depending on what maybe tier they're operating on, or it seems like they are. And sometimes you can get down in the dumps about like, oh man, like I can't do this or that like the way that these guys do it. But so much of the most authentic stuff I've ever seen is so simple. It's just like the natural environment that they're operating in, portrayed in a unique way. I remember this one music video, man, the name of the song is escaping me, but it was by Radiohead. And I swear it was like the singer of Radiohead just like interpretive dancing almost in like a single shot, just like in a black and white warehouse or something.
I think it's called Lotus Flower.
Yes, that's it.
That's so funny you bring up Tom York.
Yeah, I love Tom York. I was just singing him this morning. He's a big vocal inspiration for myself. You know, I'm inspired by so many vocalists, but definitely him. But I just remember that music video really turning me on, like activating me, and me being like, what? Why can't I do that? Like he's just fucking chilling, just like being. He's just being. And it's an amazing music video, you know? And I think that there's just something to be said about that, about just really just like dialing into your being, your unique expression, because it's so easy to look at music video by XYZ artists and say like, oh, how am I going to make it at that tier? If I can't even do that, if I can't do that, then I can't do anything. You know, what would you guys reflect around, you know, just like going ahead and like making it happen? Because I think that's a lot of struggle that people have, is they have the vision, they maybe even have the talent. It's just like there's something that's just like putting it off, you know, like rather than acting, making it happen, do what you can with what you have type of thing.
Well, a lot of this album was actually recorded with a very cheap microphone duct taped to a broken mic stand. That's what we had. And
also no studio.
And
like I feel like I house sat at like 4 different places when we recorded this
like
album.
Location set up for for studios and random places and just kind of working with what we have. And for me, I really see the beauty in that, because I come from a music realm that's very much like, you gotta have the like $4,000 microphone, it's gotta be in a fully isolated chamber, and all the audio files have to be of the highest quality and everything. Right. And so for this project, it's been really beautiful and rewarding to just be like, fuck it, that thing sounds great, or like, this microphone sounds not great, let's lean into that. And there's some grit there, and some like, there's some magic in that, just working with what you have. And there's albums that are made on phones nowadays, and I've actually come to love the sound of the iPhone, and I'll weave that into some of my music, just voice memo things. And there's a lot of music being made with very little right now, visuals as well.
Yeah. What's funny though is how things like maybe even the iPhone microphone is leaps and bounds beyond better than what maybe the Beatles recorded on. Yeah. In terms of bandwidth of, like the KB, what's it called? The KBPS or whatever it was. So, what we have, sometimes even when it's so little, is still so much given musical history.
Yeah.
That definitely comes to mind. And things like Ableton and things like Splice, like these are things people only dreamed of in the 90s.
Totally. Yeah.
It just makes it happen so much faster. I was just reflecting on that with a friend the other day, like being able to find a sample to really set something off inspirationally that just like didn't exist before. It was like either it comes, straight out of your guitar or your drum kit or whatever. And I think there's still a place for all of that as well. I'm definitely not diminishing that. I think that's beautiful, but it's just like it's almost like a Rorschach, like the Rorschach is like this image that you show someone and it's like, what do you see? It could be so many things. Like a sample is like that. Like so many people are going to feel a different feeling from a certain sample, and so many people will do a different thing with that sample. So I almost feel like it's like a Rorschach for just like getting that creative juice flowing. And I don't know, I think that's such an amazing time to be a creative. Sometimes it feels like, like everyone's creating. Is it really possible? I think that the good stuff shines through, and sometimes it takes time and there's like a snowball effect. But with kind of like patience and persistence, discipline, I think it's definitely possible to still do amazing, amazing things with music in today's world, even though, like I said, it feels oversaturated with the amount of stuff we're exposed to sometimes. It's just about getting more and more creative. I think it's just putting us a little bit more in that place of how do I create something that no one else has before, rather than sounding like in the 90s, like every band kind of sounded like each other in this like kind of grunge, garage, like Nirvana and Soundgarden and even Tool, even though they were a little more experimental, like they all had this one thing that they still, it's funny, like on the rock radio station in San Antonio, they're still only playing that, even though there's so much better music, more relevant to be playing these days. I guess they're just leaning on the classics and stuff, but I don't know. Yeah. What would you say about like today's time and like the music industry and kind of carving your way into it?
Well, I feel like, it's the best time to be an independent creator. I feel like exactly what you said. It's just like all our basic tools, such as just an iPhone, is super advanced, and you can do so much just with that. And, having social media being our main, media output, rather than, the gatekeeping that the radio once was, or needing to advertise in the newspaper or, whatever
Right.
it was before social media. It's just like, it's never been easier to put your shit out there and to just record a video on an iPhone and to just, get Ableton and, DIY yourself into your creation. I feel like really blessed to be an independent creator in the world, putting our stuff out now, because we really have all the tools to do the damn thing, and you really don't need a big label or anything to blow up. I'm not even going to say blow up, because that's not what we're trying to do here, but really attract the listeners who want to receive your music. And I feel like we live in such a niche culture of it's all about niching in your niche. And the people who can be like prominent in their niche are the ones that are like winning. And those are the ones who have very loyal audiences. And I feel like by having a loyal audience, it's just like that full creation cycle of getting to like really share your unique gifts. I feel like that's that gets completed when you're able to like really have that unique audience to receive your work. And for anyone who feels like posting is too much work or have blockages with social media, that's something I've been really working with. It's just like a little bit like take a step back and like look at actually how easy it is and how we can get out of our own ways and just just post and share, because it's really simple too and powerful too, and the way we can reach people now is just like insane.
Absolutely. Yeah, that reminds me of the idea of have you ever heard of this saying 1,000 true fans?
I have read that.
Yeah. So essentially what that means, and I think it's good for a lot of people to know, and I've certainly discussed it once or twice on the podcast, but it's that, as an artist, as a business of any sort, a musician, anything, if you can gain 1,000 true fans who will show up to your offering, show up to your show, show up to your merch drop, whatever it is, that's enough to keep the ball rolling and like getting you to that next phase of success, quote unquote. I think that's just a good thing to remind people of, because sometimes it could feel like it's all or nothing. It's like either I have 1 million fans or 10 million fans, or I'm like nothing. I'm not, like, because you're comparing yourself against these other artists that are just like way along the path. But I think it's good to recognize that the goalpost really should be more in that 100 to 1,000 true fans, and then, push it a little from there. But it really adds some confidence to what you're doing and how to do it. Like I know for myself, I think the podcast has been downloaded and viewed more than 250,000 times. I honestly could not have conceived of that, like that's crazy to me. But just by putting one foot in front of the other, it was like, whoa, how did I end up here? I think that could be the case with so many creators and so many people. And it's a good concept. I forget if that's a book or if it's like just a part of a book, but 1,000 true fans, if you guys aren't, like, the listeners, aware of this concept, I think it's super valuable.
Yeah, and I feel like with that, like, depth, not width, and just like how do we facilitate these like profound experiences for audience members rather than just trying to please everyone. And I feel like in a society where we're like obsessed with vanity metrics and everyone has their amount of followers right at the top of their page or their monthly listeners, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, what are you actually doing in the world, and who are you impacting, and in what way is actually what's richer than just these numbers that, make you look like you just, pumped up this audience or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. I remember one of my mentors, the filmmaker behind the film The Spirit Molecule, he told me one time as he was working on a new film, if this even changes one person's life, it was worth all the effort. like one person. You know, can you imagine like saving someone's life, quote unquote, with your art, with your music, with your film? It would be worth it, you know? I mean, life is very valuable. It's like the most precious thing in the universe, you know? And I think that's one thing that like these spiritual modalities and plant medicines all kind of provide you with, is this sense of the rarity of existence, because there's just this vast cosmos of who knows what. I mean, I kind of believe in aliens, but honestly, I haven't seen them, so it's like, I don't know. But but I mean, the fact that we're here, it's pretty damn special, you know?
I agree. Yeah. 1,000 people. We need 1,000 Texture Boys.
They're out there.
They're out there.
It's a specific breed, but once again, when you know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I like the idea of, you know, our music being almost like a whispered secret. Like something that you have to find or know about, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be the mainstream. In the mainstream.
It's the undercurrent, baby.
Unless some commercial wants to spin a track.
Yeah, unless, yeah, we want to get a fat sync placement.
Yeah,
that's cool too.
that'd be great. We'll take that.
Love it. Cool. Well, remind me one more time the name of the album, when it's coming out.
The album's called An Offering, and it comes out on 8/8, which is very soon. Very excited to have this out in the world.
Love it. All right, it's going to be here before you know it, guys. I'm going to get this podcast out before then, so that hopefully this can be a little teaser for the album for you guys. Really appreciate your guys' time today, Nakaya and LÜKA. If there's any kind of last words, you know, we'll take those, and then we'll wrap it.
Just want to say thank you, Matt, for having us on our first podcast.
Yeah, it's an honor.
For supporting our music and our visuals that come with it, and for all the help that TIMEWHEEL is giving to us. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an honor, guys. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, just to echo that, such a blessing to get to work with you and TIMEWHEEL. And it's funny to me to remember we've never met in person, because I consider you one of my really good friends.
Yeah.
But to have someone like you in my life as a creator, and knowing that there's just like, I mean, many people believe in me, but there's this one person out there that's just, you know, supports every creative vision I have, and is gonna, like, you know, use all the resources possible to, you know, bring that out into the world as best as we can. It's just like, wow, I couldn't even ask for more. So thank you for supporting what we do, and so many artists.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I appreciate the kind words, and it's such an honor. You know, I made this platform to celebrate forward-thinking art, things on the leading edge, things that inspire me. So you guys definitely do all of that, and keep it up. I'm excited to help share this album out into the world, and this conversation as well, give everyone a little glimpse into the world of the Texture Boys. But yeah, it's been a great time, guys. I guess if you want to just shout out your social handles, any websites, that type of thing.
You can find me at Shelajit and Instagram and TikTok. It's an underscore on both sides, but it's spelled SHELAJIT. That you'll find me in all the places. And
mine is just LÜKA Music with a K in my name, LÜKA, and then a K at the end of music instead of the C.
Dope.
And then we're the Texture Boys.
Yeah.
It's like the.texture.boys on, you know, social media. And there's not a lot of Texture Boys out there, like, as a brand. So if you just Google that, boys with an I, BOIS, you'll be able to find us pretty easy.
Love it. Yeah, and you can also find this on timewheel.net, the TIMEWHEEL Instagram, And yeah, y'all stay tuned for August 8th, an offering. Let's get it. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. See you guys next time.
Aloha.
Aloha.